How you doing, guys? Patrick at Geddon Executive Recruitment here. We specialise in cost and commercial roles across the construction sector in Australia, APAC, UK, Europe and now the USA. Great chat with the guys today about my humble beginnings in a small market in Belfast, coming to Australia and now working on some really exciting projects across the cost and commercial world. So tune in today. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Confessions of a Recruiter. Today we've got our man over from the ditch, Patrick from Geddon Recruitment. How are you, brother?
Yeah, good boys, good.
Did I say that all right? Geddon?
Yeah,
Geddon.
Geddon Recruitment.
Yeah.
Geddon.
Tough
Nice,
one.
mate. Thanks for joining us, brother.
All good.
Appreciate it. So you're coming off a big night,
Yeah,
big estimating
nights.
event.
Big event in the city yesterday. Estimators and Entertainment. It's called purely. Well, we know it as the only event that's focused purely on estimating and cost specialists in Australia. So it's not a formal event. There's no keynote speakers. It's just bar tab, lads in a room, girls in a room, chatting, and yeah, went pretty well last night. 130 there.
130, nice.
130, which
That's a
is
big turnout.
decent turnout. But traditionally, when you sort of hear of estimators and cost specialists, they're always sort of, I suppose, painted a little bit more introverted and hard to speak. But I didn't see any of them last night. You know, it was a good fun.
Mate, put a bar tab on and a few beers. No one's introverted, hey?
100%.
Absolutely.
So these events have been going on for a few years.
Yeah,
It's a quite a big differentiator that you have compared to many other agencies.
Yeah, it's. I think myself and Mick have been going about 4 or 5 years now, and it is something a little bit different, you know. Obviously looking at how else can we bring people together, a bit of a community type feel, and we really just didn't see anything out there other than your formal events that people go to, and it's not really that much fun, and it's, you know, a little bit sort of square and old school, and we thought, well, I'm sure these guys, you know, have something to say and don't really have a platform to maybe speak to other people in the industry, you know, in more of a relaxed environment. And we originally, obviously, as a business initiative, thought this would be really good for clients to come along to, but what we found, it's more morphed into the candidates really want to come and just speak to their peers in the industry and share the good, the bad and the uglies and the ups and downs, and it's more sort of help the business in that way grow, because then we're getting recognised for doing something that's very specific and niche to them and to our market, which has been, you know, invaluable to us really. So now we were really pushing the event all the time. Now we're sort of getting candidates, you know, asking when's the next one, you know, because it's something quite new, and yeah, it's always good fun.
Nice, love that. Now, just for people who haven't heard of you before, mate, do you mind giving us a bit of a 2 to 3 minute background on your recruitment history, how you started, and kind of where you're at today?
Yeah, so like most people, fell into recruitment, never sort of set out to get involved in it. 10 or 11 years ago now, I'm back in Belfast, which is where I went to uni before I dropped out, and sort of stayed there for 5 or 6 years. And worked with like a small recruitment company that are traditionally known for bringing in sort of young people who are looking to get their start, and typically they do tend to move on 2 or 3 years later. So it's a good sort of good starting point, you know, cut your teeth, make a few mistakes, and sort of learn the trade.
What was it like, mate? What was the environment like?
Yeah, back
Yeah.
when.
2013 in Belfast.
Yeah, it's tough. Belfast is a small place, you know. So I recruited, sort of started more like technical engineering type thing. Belfast is huge for manufacturing, you know, like aircraft manufacturing, food manufacturing, that type of thing. So started out at a really small market, trying to find real niche sort of technical skill sets, which was a fucking nightmare, you know, a really small place to try and do it. So that's where the sort of, suppose what the business is now is that sort of real niche search that we do. So that's sort of where the grounding came from, is trying to find these people in a really tight market with no LinkedIn recruiter, by the way. It was
How did you do it?
It was traditional advertising. It was, you know, 10 calls before 9 a.m., you know, that real sort of old school approach to the recruitment, just getting on the phone and speaking to people and asking people and things like that. So I think that's where the sort of a really good grounding, although they weren't the most formal established business, it was a good place to start, you know, for someone that had no idea what they wanted to do. And it was just more, mess up as you go along, and then that's where you'll sort of learn, So that was a good place. And then, like most people, got that age. All my mates that were in uni were going to America for 3 or 4 months in the summer. They were going to play football, and obviously didn't have that luxury with working full time. I thought, well, I want to go do something, want to go somewhere. Originally was coming to Australia with a couple of mates to do farm work and mess about for a couple of years. And then I thought, I'm keen to continue the career, and see if we can do something different. And that's when I sort of met Mick and worked for another business, Franklin Smith, in Brisbane via Melbourne for 6 months, which was a short stint. And leads me to where we are now, sort of specialising or morphing from more technical engineering. And now, obviously, Australia being construction quite heavy, it was naturally sort of fell into the construction world.
Yeah, so you've recruited in a lot of different geographies. What's your favourite geography? What's the best place to recruit in, and why?
I really like doing work in the States at the moment.
Okay.
That's purely because opportunities are there. The interest levels are insanely high for Aussie citizens, UK, Irish citizens to go to America. It's still seen as the sort of promised land, if you like. And I suppose it's my favourite at the minute. It's probably a little bit easier, to be honest, because the interest is there. There's not too much hard selling that needs to be done. Do you want the opportunity to live and work in America? Yes, so here's something that you should definitely look at, But I have to say, Brisbane's a cool place to operate in. Reminds me a little bit of Belfast, obviously on a much bigger scale, but it is a tight market. Everyone knows everyone. Big country town, very highly relationship driven, which we found out the hard way, coming into a new market, trying to knock down doors, and it takes a long time, So we're probably seeing the real fruits of the labour 24 months into that sort of hard graft at the start. So, but it's good when you do get in with those types of, whether it's solid businesses, good clients, good candidates, because then it's once you're in, you're very much locked in with them. So Brisbane, I would say, is really a rewarding place to sort of nail. But we work nationally. Perth's a huge growth market for us at the moment. Again, days gone by, the big draw was Sydney and Melbourne. Now it's those that live in Sydney and Melbourne are now looking at the likes of Adelaide and Perth, because the cost of living's going up, house prices, all that type of thing, looking more lifestyle, which is quite unique as well now, because traditionally we probably would have done more hunting from Perth and Adelaide to come to the East Coast, and now it's sort of turned a little bit, which is quite unique.
So you're mainly recruiting estimators?
Yeah, so we estimating and cost management specialists, so your quantity surveyors, anything to do with the pricing or costing of a construction project. So that in a sense is quite niche. If it's estimators, quantity surveyors, commercial managers, project control specialists, planning, design. So we really set out to want to be a specialist in sort of pre-construction, because again, we didn't really see anyone that was really driving that home, and I think when people think of construction, they think of hard hat, boots on the ground, project
PMs,
management, PM. That's all they really think about.
Yeah,
sort of, I suppose, more glamorous, put your name to a project type thing. And there was no one focusing on, well, how did that project get to this stage? Who's won that project? And the estimators are just so valuable to that. They're really the gatekeepers to businesses. They're the revenue builders that drive revenue to feed the delivery team.
Are they in a way like salespeople?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I mean, they're very much like a representation of the business. They're at the front end, the cold face of it,
Pricing jobs, trying to win them.
Pricing jobs, competitive tenders, but it's also highly relationship driven as well, The success of an estimator, can sometimes be determined by their relationships in the market, their subcontractor network, and that's where they play a big role in the success of the business, is that sort of front end stuff. So we noticed, for want of a better term, a bit of a gap in the market there, where people weren't really focusing specifically on these guys. And to be honest, we felt that they were a little bit underappreciated, People think of estimators, always think sort of in an office, headphones in, head down, crunching numbers, and it's really not that, you know. They're highly, highly attentive. They're super, super competitive as well, you know. And yeah, we enjoy working with them, you know. They're sort of similar to ourselves, want to do good work with good people and want to, you know, continue to develop. So that's where our focus is now, is that sort of cost and pricing specialist in the market.
Nice. And like, what was the hardest part about cracking the Brisbane market? Because you guys do it from New Zealand, don't you?
Yeah, well, we operate between New Zealand and Brisbane. We've lived here for sort of 2 and 3 years before. New Zealand's a market that, you know, we get a lot of interest in as well. So being based in Brisbane and cracking Brisbane market was tough. You know, with anything, it all takes time. But I think what I found in Australia versus maybe back home or in New Zealand is that having a specialism really makes you stand out, you know. Whether people agree with it or not, I don't think that a generalist, you know, makes you stand out in the market, you know.
It's funny that you say that, because most generalists will get extremely fearful when you tell them just focus on one role, one industry, one position title. They'll go, oh, I'm not going to be able to bill anything if I do that.
Yeah.
But what they don't realise is when you're a generalist, you kind of cap out at like 400 or 500K a year in billings. But when you're a specialist, just doing the same role, same location, same position title, they're the people that are billing 1 million, 2 million, etc. When they're hyper focused on their market and they just capitalize on every opportunity. So did that ever go through your mind? Did you ever go, oh geez, Mick, you're making me focus on these estimators? They're few and far between, mate. What are you doing to us?
There's always that fear and anxiety when you think, fuck, am I going to leave all of these guys alone? Am I going to focus on 1% of the market here? But when you're in it, you sort of have that inch wide, mile deep sort of approach. It's like, yes, I'm just focusing on very specific and niche job titles, but I can do that in defence, infrastructure, civil, building, contractors, consultancies, client side, Brisbane, Perth, the States, the UK. So although it's very, very niche, you know, it's vast where that can lead to, you know. And obviously there's always those like ad hoc offshoots that come of that, you know, whether it's you know, designer or something that's quite related, that we obviously, you know, for the right client, we always jump on as well. So yeah, I agree. It's always a bit of anxiety, and you do go through the I suppose the patches where you think, fuck, you know, maybe we'll jump on to this or we'll look at that, and it's like it's trying to train yourself to trust the process and stay in that lane, because eventually it will pay off. And suppose over the you know, we've been going now for just over 2.5 years. Really, the 2 years working now is coming to fruition, where we're now recognised as someone that just specialises in this area. So, you know, we're getting less and less approaches for those other type of jobs, the PMs and that type of thing, which for us is a big, you know, I suppose it's a testament now to the work that we've done. We're now not getting approached by those jobs. They know we're specialists and they want us to focus on this area. So. Yeah, it's been good, but it's been tough to maybe stay sort of focused.
Yeah, that's a long graft, mate. 24 months. Not many recruiters have the tenacity and the grit and the determination to just keep pushing for 2 years in the one industry and the one title. What do you put that down to? Were you 100% sure that it was going to play out and it played out exactly as you thought, or what gave you the confidence, you know, at 12 months, 18 months to keep going?
I suppose, well, excuse me, with where me and Mick had worked before, we always found a sort of, we liked working with the QSs, we liked doing that sort of cost and commercials. So naturally, we just felt, and with the fact that no one else was specialising in it, we thought that, you know, this could be something that would work well for us personally, because we enjoy it, but also, you know, be a success too. So that was our thinking. But from then until now, you know, obviously keeping the business going and driving, you know, keeping the business afloat so that we could be the specialism, you know, we had to be a bit more malleable. We had to adapt. And during that time, of course, we have looked at other areas and worked with certain clients on maybe positions that are a bit left of field. But for us, that's helped us with them. When we now decide to be a real specialist, they now recognise what we've done before and what we do now, and those relationships are now helping us, when we sort of morphed into that more specialist cost role. So it hasn't been, I wouldn't say a 2.5 years total focus on that area, but that's always been the end of the road goal for us, if that makes sense.
Primary focus. If something's come in secondary, then you give it a crack. But trying hard for the estimating. And so at the start of the pod, you mentioned you had an event last night.
Yeah.
What was the rationale behind this event? Like, why did you decide to do it?
Well, again, because we haven't seen anything like this for estimating and cost specialists in the market, in Brisbane especially. And the feedback that we've always got is that they haven't had a real platform where they can openly and honestly share with their peers, the ups and downs and the bad and uglies. It was more formal events and black tie events and stuff like that. And, I think a lot of people, when they're talking about work, it's outside of work. It's not maybe the number one conversation. But if they can do it in an environment where it's a bit more relaxed and casual, then, it can be quite engaging conversation. So we've been doing it for about 5 or 6 years now, Estimators and Entertainment, and it's the most laid-back, casual, relaxed event you could ever think of. Guys showing up in shorts and Birkenstocks and whatever else, and it's just, few tunes, free bar tab, and we tend to do them sort of once a year, sometimes a little bit more frequent. It's just a good place for people to speak, and the feedback, it's steadily growing now. From the first event was sort of 50, 60, and now last night was about 130, 140 there. So the feedback we're getting is just it's a bit of a release. It's good for people to come together and speak. And we get a really good mix of experienced guys in the market that have been there, done that just want to come along and share their sort of stories with people. We get really skilled overseas candidates that are looking for their start in Australia and looking to just connect with people and talk to people. And then we get really good clients as well, directors of businesses, associate directors, that come along as well, just because they sort of like the thought of it, like to see what we're doing. And they're happy to speak to people as well, And what, we originally started out as more of a business development initiative with clients. But we find that it's more sort of candidate driven now and candidate focused, and they're the ones that see the real benefit of it versus the clients. So yeah, it's good. It's always good fun. And yeah, they definitely went hard last night.
Where was it?
It was in Fortitude Valley. Yeah, just
Pig and Whistle. Or?
Yeah, Pig and Whistle. Yeah.
Nice. Good spot.
Yeah, good spot.
And then what happens post-event? Are you contacting everyone and being like, thanks for coming, let's, reverse market you, find you new jobs, or is it? I
suppose there's obviously, that was probably more of a focus at the start, when we were getting things up and going. Now it's, these are guys that we're sort of constantly in contact with, whether it's for an opportunity or whether it's just to speak to them, because a lot of them have sort of, I would say have become friends from the event. So I suppose we're regularly in contact with them anyway. It wouldn't be a case of a formal follow-up. We probably get a lot of those follow-up messages to us, thanks for last night and, look forward to the next one and stuff. But a couple of interesting conversations last night between some of our really good clients and some good sort of candidates that we're seeking something at the moment. So we would imagine that something will come of a couple of those sort of meetings, which for us as a business, that's what that event is about, not that it's our primary goal to get in there and make placements. That's not what we're about. But if we can see that, good clients and candidates alike are coming together and they're a meeting, I mean, that's the purpose. That's networking, isn't it? That's connection. So for us, that's great. We love that.
Nice. And what was the trigger for having a crack in America? Because I've been on headhunting pages and stuff, and the fees in America are way double the price of Australia. Yeah. Was it that, or what was the reason for wanting to try and crack the States?
I think just to really sort of, I suppose, solidify what we're doing and test it in different markets, because the role doesn't change that much between company, it's the same position, it's the same set of skills that's required. So why couldn't we? You know, why couldn't we go somewhere else? For us, it's probably, we bit of fun as well. We want to do stuff with cool businesses and cool locations. And when you've got someone saying like, I need a senior QS in Kansas City, you're like, that's pretty cool. You know, it's unique. It's not maybe the same run of the mill stuff in Brisbane or Sydney and Melbourne that we know and our network is. So for us, it's more of a challenge to see can we grow the business into the States as well. We don't see why not. We're specialists in one key area. It's in huge demand in the States as well.
Do you try and find people in the States to place them in the States though, or are you trying to get people to relocate?
Typically, it's a relocation for us.
Why wouldn't you just try and find someone local and
Well,
razz them up?
yeah, I mean, if the assignment is to get someone local with local experience, then that's where our searchability comes in, you know, because we aren't a sort of your typical sort of high street recruitment company. We're pure executive search, so we really go through, we'll review almost 3,000 candidates per job, and that results in a short list of 2 to 3 CVs. So that's the level of detail that we go into. But with the American stuff, there is a real skill shortage there for specific skill sets, particularly estimating, cost management, planning. And agreement that was actually made by Donald Trump before he left office between Australia and America was a new E3 visa, which is very simple for Aussie citizens to go and live and work in America. So with the Australian market being pretty...
Place me, mate.
Yeah. Hey.
But with the Aussie market obviously being notable globally for construction, they're looking to tap into that resource here, if anyone wants the opportunity to come to the States. So there's a big pull for Aussie construction specialists, particularly in that sort of project control space. And with us being based here, it's natural that we can be on the ground. Anyone wants that opportunity. So, the American stuff, again, it's something that took a long time,
How do you charge your fees? Are you charging in US dollars, Australian dollars? What's the rates? Like, how's the commercials look for a US company?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, the fees are astronomical.
Yeah.
It's quite common that they're paying 22 to 25% fees, which is insane. So we would just do that through a business account in the States, US dollars, quite simple. But
So 23 to 25% USD. So you
You add 50% for the Aussie dollar, and all of a sudden
double your fee.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's insane.
Yeah,
It is insane. But then the way they look at it as well is for example, we're working on a role with a large data center consultancy at the moment. But it's almost like, okay, well, if an Aussie company says, I want you to get someone to go out in Alice Springs, no, it's not a big sell, But for an Aussie that's looking at an opportunity in the States to go to like a regional area like Utah or, wherever it may be, the Midwest, it's hard for them to get a skilled guy in America to go and do that, uproot their family and stuff. But for someone that wants that opportunity in the States, it's a little bit easier,
Yeah. Because that sounds cool, just
yeah.
on face value.
Yeah,
like going
does.
to Utah and going out Midwest and
That's it.
yeah,
There's
100%.
a bit of a pull there from overseas guys to come in, so
Yeah.
it's a little bit more difficult to get someone in the States to go there. Plus, they've got big internal recruitment teams, these companies in the States. They do a really good job of tapping into that local market as well. And I suppose that's where we're a little bit different. We can get local guys.
How many of your placements would be a relocation as just someone locally getting the job?
I wouldn't know exact figures, but it's definitely more common now than it has been.
70-30, like 30%
Yeah,
relocation.
something like that, 70-30, 80-20 type work.
Yeah,
We do a lot of overseas, recruitment campaigns and strategies for big clients as well that actually are targeting overseas because of just a complete lack of skill set here, particularly with a couple of companies in New Zealand, typically targeting big aviation companies in the Middle East and India and stuff like that, which again is really cool, exciting work for us.
Yep.
But as I maybe said, there's definitely more interest now in getting away from those big metropolises, Sydney and Melbourne, with how things are going now at the moment, and people are looking at relocation to a more sort of, I suppose, sedentary lifestyle in Perth and Adelaide, and even regional Queensland. We get a lot of interest now, in likes of Townsville and Cairns and things like that. So that's been a a huge shift, I would say. People from overseas still, the Sydney and the Melbourne are still the big sexy cities, and that's where they want to go. But I think the local sort of Aussies now are thinking, whether it's a family or just commercials, that they're maybe looking at those more sort of economically friendly areas. So yeah, there's definitely that's been a bit of a spike, I would say, in the last 18 months. Is those,
because even like Dubai and Abu Dhabi, they're paying PMs like $500K a year to go over there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, what I always say to candidates, if you're motivated by money, go to Saudi. You know, if that's the life that you want, go there. For some people, that's the absolute dream. Let's go to Saudi, make absolute bank for 2 years, tax free, whatever. Good on you. Absolutely go there. And that's the difficulty when sometimes we're sort of taking people from those areas to Aussie when they look at taxes and all that type of thing. But it's just down to your own motivations. If you want to come to Australia and get set up with family and live in this sort of culture, maybe they're not too happy with how things are done in Saudi or the Middle East, and the opportunity's there, but there's some concessions need to be made. It's not an Abu Dhabi, it's not a Saudi. You are getting taxed, but God, it's something I've always thought about too. Is going to those places.
100%. I think it goes through everyone's mind.
Yeah.
Like when you hear of no tax, you're like, geez, just go over there and just rinse it for a couple of years and come back. Okay, so if there are any recruiters out there that are interested to find out what it's like to have a VA support them in their role, whether that be to bill more, reduce tasks that they don't enjoy doing, or be a more effective recruiter in their niche, then we definitely recommend reaching out to the Outsource People or TOP. Reach out to them, inquire on how they can implement a VA in your agency and to support you. And if you mention ex-recruiter or Confessions of a Recruiter, they will give you a 13% discount off your bill per month on this VA that will allow you to scale your business, scale your desk, and to bill more and make more money. So go reach out to the Outsource People, say Confession sent you, get your discount, and see what is possible. So the last 2 years was that the moment you decided to like double down on the estimating industry? And before that, it was a little bit more generalist. Is that right? Or?
Yeah, I mean, when I worked for companies before Geddon, it was always more generous. We were like, okay, you work in construction, that's your day of scores. Civil construction, everything within that you do. So more sort of sector specialisms rather than job specialisms. So yeah, the last sort of 2.5 years has been to get where we are now, specialising in pure cost and pricing roles, project control positions within the industry. Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
And so what have you been doing over the last 2 years? From a BD standpoint, like what's the BD strategy to just get in? Are you just mapping your market, bashing out cold calls? Could you walk us through what you've been doing over the last few years for BD?
I suppose it's as with any sort of startup business, it's been a mixture of a lot of things, and for us it's just constant engagement is the most important thing. We've got a really, really solid sort of marketing team would do a lot of background work in, the likes of salary surveys and market insights, and that's something that we like to bring to our network rather than just just opportunities all the time. It's more, have you thought about this? Or we're looking at microeconomic factors in certain cities as well, and bringing that information to candidates as well.
Where do you get that information from? Like, how much time do you spend searching?
Well, luckily we have someone dedicated to just focusing on that, and developing that sort of, more of that left of field information that is becoming more important in people's decision making now, rather than just a job, a city, a location, salary. It's those little small economic factors that we think are actually playing a big part in sometimes us getting deals over the line, believe it or not,
What would that be, for an example?
Well, for example, in Brisbane 5 years ago, the average house price was like 500,000.
Yeah.
Now it's nearly $1 million. Those sort of things when people are looking, I want to come to Brisbane because it's cheaper than Sydney and Melbourne. We're going, it's not really anymore. It's right up there. Last year in Gold Coast, for example, there was 0.01% vacancy of rental properties. So So we always have an interest in people coming from Brisbane wanting down to the Goldie, and again overseas wanting to go to Gold Coast, and we can provide that more sort of intricate insight into. Well, it's not as easy just to walk in there and there's 60, 70, 80 people doing house viewings, for one property, and it's just an absolute race to the bottom bidding war. So those sort of things as well, we find that candidates, mostly candidates, they aren't getting that information from anywhere else. And then when we're working with clients closely and engaging in the search, we're telling them that we're searching every inch of the market, but we can provide that real life feedback to them as to why you're not getting 6, 7 options here, or why you've been looking for 6 months. It's because maybe there's something that they've missed, or something they're not thinking about, because they're just focused on their business, right? They're a company and maybe not thinking externally, why aren't we getting these people in? So for us, it's the strategy has just been to focus on that one sort of our network, that the estimating cost specialists, but bring them extra information that maybe they aren't getting from elsewhere, or probably more of the boring shit that they don't want to go and research themselves, But yeah, I think myself and Mick are, as much as we're innovative and trying to grow a business, we're a little bit cut from the same cloth in terms of old school. We just talk to people, get the information from your network, share it with others, and you'll always get something back, So we're very much, be on the phone, be active, be engaging. That's why we do the events as well, because the things you pick up from the events last night with certain companies and who's moving where, it's like that's priceless, and you don't get that. Sometimes you don't even get that over the phone. It's more when you're sitting across the table with a beer with someone, then they're a bit more, they'll
They're more open.
Yeah, you can find out so much more info in a relaxed face-to-face setting than you can over a first or second phone call with a candidate. It's crazy, the difference.
Yeah, for sure. So now with the events and stuff we're doing, it's like, whereas before maybe we're calling, not getting the love back, it's now people pick up the phone, and they're happy to talk and happy to engage, and for us that's I suppose a small success.
Do you put that down to the event?
I think the event goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because again, we're not finding that anyone else is doing it, so it's for them. It's huge. It's really, really big. And yeah, I think so. I mean, there's only so much relationship building you can do over a phone, and obviously it goes a long way. And look, the way the world is at the moment, you can work from anywhere and you can speak to anyone. As long as you have a phone and a laptop, you can do your job. But there's nothing beats a face-to-face meeting. There's nothing that beats a beer with someone, and that's the sort of extra level to think that's that really helps us.
How about the podcast? Has that had a good good impact?
The podcast, again, similar to the event, we thought would be more for a sort of client piece, but we are now getting candidates, whether it's estimating managers, senior estimators, quantity surveyors, going like, I would love to come on. So again, it's sort of turned on its head. It's more sort of candidate focused now. But yeah, the podcast is great. Again, it's been going for about 4 or 5 years now as well. It's called The Takeoff, which if anyone that knows estimating, is something that estimators do every single day.
What is that?
It's like a takeoff in terms of the front end of their estimate, the sort of material and quantity takeoff and things like that. So it fits quite well, I suppose.
So an estimator will go, the Takeoff podcast. Yeah. Oh, I get it. That's for us. Yeah, gotcha.
So it's good. Again, get all shapes and sizes of people on the podcast, and it's fun. Yeah, I'm not a really I suppose active in terms of my personal brand on LinkedIn. So the podcast for me at the start was a little bit like nervous as fuck,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. It's really, really fun.
Do you ever have your candidates turn into clients?
Yeah, quite often. I mean, because we do a lot of work with senior guys, we may have placed, just last week we placed a senior estimator into an estimating manager role with a really good business that we work with. So naturally, I would imagine that evolution with him will be him picking up the phone to us looking for that sort of estimator, senior estimator. So happens all the time. And just with the rate that the market's been moving, particularly in Brisbane, those progression opportunities have probably came a little bit quicker than maybe they would have in other markets or times gone by. So we're actually starting to see a probably a quicker turnaround of that candidate to client sort of transition. So yeah, it happens quite often. And
You know why I ask? Because I have only come to the realization, probably over the last couple of years, that it's like a feedback loop hack in recruitment, that if you can start placing ultimately who your client should be, you get so much more business for it. Like I couldn't imagine, let's say just recruiting admin, and like none of your candidates would really ever turn into your client, and you're always constantly rinsing, trying to get new relationships. Whereas, you know, I talk about Lexi a lot, where she does electrical branch managers and places a ton of them, and they always need to recruit for their own branch as well. So you place them, and then all of a sudden they come back to you and go, hey, I got 3 roles. And you can really double down on your effort. So recruiting in a space or a position title that they can both be your clients and your candidates is almost like a little bit of a shortcut to building BD.
Yeah, it's almost that's what you want, isn't it? Like, you know, if it makes your life easier and job easier, I mean, why not? You
100%.
know? And with estimating as well, there's not I suppose a degree or a path that for estimators to go on. It's almost like a bit like recruitment. You fall into estimating type thing, and that's a big problem in the industry as well, is that estimating isn't spoken about enough. And in the market right now, in all of Australia, there's only 651 senior estimators, and that's with 10 years experience or more. Last month on Seek, there was 945 estimating jobs advertised. So there is just a huge demand, very little, I suppose, drive for people to move into the estimating. Again, it's more sexy engineers, project managers, you know, that type of thing. So Australia, you know, could, if there isn't more done with that sort of front end skill set and drive towards it, you know, could be in not a great position with backfilling those roles, because a lot of these guys are coming towards retirement age, and there isn't that sort of conveyor belt coming behind them to sort of fill that space.
That's like a lot of industries.
That's
what
industries.
I was finding. Like I always recruited technical sales engineers, and it's the exact same thing. Like there's no buy-in. Like kids aren't leaving uni to sell valves.
Mate, that's I do sometimes wonder what's going to happen there from industries that are just, there's a lot of dinosaurs. There's no one interested, like even apprenticeships. Like I was recruiting a locksmith role, and like anyone that's a qualified locksmith are few and far between. No kids like, oh, I want to be a locksmith one day and do a 4-year apprenticeship to become a locksmith. And like they've got to start paying massive dollars just to attract anyone. There's so many industries that are almost on the way out because they just can't attract new people, new apprentices.
If you're a tradie, an estimator would be like the dream job.
And we do get that now. And to be fair, I think that the attitude, particularly from contractors, is changing a little bit, because they are starting to notice that, you know, we could be, if this guy was to leave, we could be in a pretty sticky situation. So what we found, and we've had some success in, is that there are guys there that, you know, maybe family situations, you know, dictate that they can't be on site or don't want to be on site 5-6 days a week, sometimes working Saturdays. And because they have that on the ground knowledge and know how to deliver a project, and, you know programming and risk, and they can transition across the pricing a job, because they know how to deliver it. They know the implications of, you know, something, you know, messing up on the project. They know how that has cost implications. So there is a big drive for those guys to transition into estimating. Because the feedback that we've got is that the hardest part of estimating isn't actually delivering the cost. It's all that sort of intricacies of how the project is delivered. And there's no better people that know that than those that deliver it, you know. So we're starting to see a lot of engineers wanting to change, whether it's for family reasons, work-life balance, you know, don't want to be up at 5 a.m. to go to site, driving an hour away, hour and a half away, you know, typically you get some work from home and things like that. So yeah, that's going to have to continue, I think, to try and bridge that gap in the demand. But then again, we always have the overseas options that, you know, have a really strong ability, but I think Australia is still in that, you know, local experience is what we need, particularly in construction. You know, it's quite insular, so we'll see.
I feel like that's just the Aussie attitude. Nah, they got to know. They got to be local here, or else they just won't know how to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I get that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Actually,
mate, it's the same thing no matter where you go.
Yeah, it's weird. I had an estimating manager one time who was Irish, and he told me he needs local experience, and I thought, well, where did you come from? You know, who gave you your start? It was quite. He laughed about it, but yeah, it is that sort of, I suppose, old school attitude, and they have to have been here and done that, and you know, we do get that to a certain extent. It's obviously risk mitigating factors.
Yep.
You know, if someone's local and here on the ground, it's obviously a lot easier, but you know, there's good guys outside of Australia too, you know.
And what are your conversations like with clients? Are you talking about like the risk or the return on investment, or how they can, you know, a better estimator can improve project delivery?
Well, yeah, for sure. And I think that's the bulk of our conversations now, is to really, I suppose, bring that to light as to what they can do to business. They're not just here to sit and crunch numbers, and they drive revenue to the company, you know. They're highly competitive people that, you know, want to succeed, and you know, they really get the bit between their teeth when they know they're up against company A, company B, company C, and that's what drives a good price, you know. But they also de-risk projects for the delivery as well, you know. But ultimately, you know, they are the gatekeepers to feeding that delivery team. So we have those conversations. Typically, they're probably a little bit more, you know, I wouldn't say they're one-sided, but because we're speaking with like-minded people, or estimating managers who've came up maybe from that estimating role. But yeah, for us, it's a bit more education on what they can do to your business, you know. And that's tends to be, we get good feedback from it, you know, absolutely. Yeah, so it's more an education for us to deliver to our clients, rather than, you know, here's a good guy, you should definitely meet him. It's
I think that's the biggest differentiator for senior recruiters or niche recruiters, actually understand their market, being able to educate their clients and have a lot more impact, as opposed to be like, mate, what's the job description, and I'll find you, you know, a good bloke.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And again, because in that real niche area, we know the track record these guys have. If they've went to company A, we know over that 3 years they've delivered a $500 million hospital project, or, you know, these are projects that this guy has actually brought to the business. They've been big successes. So we're pretty on top, I suppose, of what they have done in that time with that company. And again, it's a small market, so people tend to know, and I suppose it gets recognized fairly quickly.
For sure. And what's your week look like? Like, are you talking to dozens and dozens of recruiters? What's the, you know, you mentioned you're on the phone all the time. Like, what is your activity still as high as it would have been when you first started?
I would say now it's the highest it's ever been.
Why is that?
We've recently had a bit of a change of strategy within the business, where, you know, Mick admittedly loves being the face, getting out there, meeting clients, business development, you know, strategies, you know, different market initiatives. He loves that stuff. I'm not doing so much, you know. I like being really detailed search, you know. Sometimes I'll shut myself away and just get into the weeds of it for hours. And that's what I like doing, really detailed, speaking with candidates, you know, I suppose selling the job, you know, speaking about my clients. But the success of having that split where Mick does the front end, I do more delivery, is actually dependent on the delivery person still being able to engage with the client, you know, because if they can just speak to candidates, how are you getting that deal across the line without having those client skills or being able to influence, you know? So that's more what our strategy is now. So I am definitely more active in terms of searching, you know, whether it's guys overseas doing Teams interviews at 10 p.m. at night, for example, because of different time zones, or, you know, early morning starts, and delivering sort of robust shortlisting is what our sort of method is, you know. So
would you be basically a 180 recruiter now? So you're both doing 180. He does the BD, you do the candidate sourcing.
In essence, yeah, but I find myself.
But there's a bit of an overlap, obviously. Yeah,
but because once we have I suppose the live assignment on, and typically it's mostly exclusive work that we would do, because it's an executive search, you know. Typically I'm sort of speaking with the client right from the start, right to the end as well. But in terms of that front end BD, getting meetings and things like that.
First lead in.
That's more Mick, you know. So
Yeah.
I would be hesitant to say it's 180, you know, because there's constant overlap. And again, if workload is what it is, you know, perhaps Mick jumps on and speaks to senior candidates. That's his network. He knows everyone. So it's very easy for us to just chop and change. And so,
mate, when two people work on in the same space and they can bounce off each other, mate, the billings go up dramatically.
yeah.
It's so much easier to find more candidates, more clients, get a second perspective, and kind of really bounce off each other from an energy standpoint. So I think you guys doing the, you know, complementing each other is the best strategy rather than working in two silos. Because I see a lot of recruiters in small agencies. It's like in small agencies, it's like you do this desk and I'll do this desk.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just both did the same desk, you'd probably actually have way better outcomes for both of you instead of splitting it and both starting from scratch.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think what's part of our structure and where we're a little bit more unique is that when we have a live assignment on, it's not, okay, you know, Patrick, you're doing that. It's we're putting both our heads together. We're combining our networks. We're combining our knowledge. We're looking at previous searches. We're looking at successes in that area, and it allows us to turn around a little bit more quicker, but also a little bit more concise, you know, with our shortlist. So we find that definitely helps us, and you know, yeah, because we both still enjoy recruiting and filling jobs, you know, we get satisfaction from that as much as Mick loves bringing stuff on and driving revenue to the business. I like doing this stuff. We both ultimately love when someone signs a contract.
Love the
so,
outcome, yeah.
So
Bloody oath.
that's still the driver for us, you know.
Yep. And have you always worked like that, or has it been just recently where you said, hey, let's do it this way?
Yeah, no, it's probably more of a recent change. I would say in the last sort of year, 18 months, we just recognised that I like doing this, Mick likes doing that. Why don't we, again, be specialists and try and focus in that area? And yeah, for us, it's really been a success because when we engage with clients and we have that initial sort of exploration call to find out more about the role, the feedback we get is they like that there's a strategy in the search. You know, I'm more sort of candidate engagement, Mick's probably more market insights and overall strategy behind the search and things like that. So they tend to get, I suppose, feel a little bit more secure that, okay, this is the structure, this is the plan, and it delivers results.
Yep.
So it has been a new strategy. It's probably something that we've probably been doing it before without actually recognizing it, but now we've sort of, I suppose, compartmentalized it, and we definitely do that now, you know.
Awesome, mate. So dual, like working on a desk together, there's obviously a lot more energy, doing the podcast, doing events, just making sure you're filling up all buckets and keeping the old school activity going.
That's it. Yeah, I don't think there's people will maybe go down the road with one strategy, and maybe that works. But for us, it's, you know, we'll try different things. We'll make a mess of something, and then we'll know what to do it again. We'll, you know, something will work, something will stick. But there's always a thought process behind it. It's not one specific thing that we do. It's we will try things. You know, we'll try and be innovative as much as we are, you know, a little bit more old school in terms of just getting on the phone and going and meeting people. We'll try different things, and for us, you know, we're now seeing what definitely works. And yeah,
I think the fact that you guys just keep going is the secret sauce. Like 5 years of events, 5 years of a podcast, and just not throwing in the towel.
Yeah, well, for us, I mean, you know, both being from Ireland, we left home, left family, left friends. You know, we need to make it a success to make that all worth it. So I think both of us, you know, have a pretty good work mentality, a pretty good work ethic. You know, we're also highly competitive with each other, to the point now where it's still, you know, we'll still see our call activity, and
Who does the most calls?
It changes.
Oh, politically correct answer.
What's the weekly call volume?
I would say we're like
Daily?
you're probably speaking 25, 30 people a day, you know.
What's that? 60 outbound calls, 50% connects?
Probably something around those, yeah. But what I started doing now is sending that call report in every day, you know, and that's keeping me accountable. It keeps Mick, it keeps the rest of the team accountable as well. And it's more of that sort of old school, you know, how many calls did you do yesterday? And you know, we think that equals success. Is how
Bloody oath, mate.
busy can you be? The more times you do something, the more people will call you back. You know,
It's scary how many recruiters think that that's not the way.
Yeah, they think there's a silver bullet somewhere that they're still trying to work out what it is.
Yeah.
and they get devastated when you tell them, you've just got to increase your activity.
Yeah.
And they're like, come on, surely there's something else that could make me build more.
I think
it's like, no, mate, you got to just do more work.
Yeah, the two biggest ones is learning how to speak like a leader to your clients, and you know, getting really commercially driven on the outcomes that the candidates make, and then the activity.
Yeah. I think as well, our client base have recognised that we're not afraid to try something new. You know, I mean, in the mouth of COVID, you know, Mick was calling people. Mick was calling clients. They're like, why are you calling me? You know, why? And he just didn't stop. He didn't stop calling. And 2 years later, they recognise that. They're like, yeah, I remember you called me whenever shit hit the fan, and you were still hunting and still trying to drive, and they recognise that now. And for us, I think that's hugely important. And yeah, activity, get on the phone, speak to people. But I think that goes a long way as well. And back to maybe breaking down those Brizzy sort of market, they're like that. You know, the fact that we knew we were not going to get anything back from those phone calls. No one was hiring, but we were still grafting and then still trying to speak to people. And yeah, 2-3 years later, they still remember that. You know.
Yeah.
No,
that's awesome. And so we do have we also do have a nice little ending where we get the previous podcast guest to write a question for the next podcast guest. So we don't know what it is yet, but are you ready?
Go for it, yeah.
All right. I think I know this one already for the boys. What has gone really wrong in a client meeting, and how did you fix it?
I would say there was a meeting recently that we were in Sydney, but it was over Teams. I was in the hotel, and this isn't a disaster, but just calling someone the wrong name for the entire 60-minute was absolutely horrendous.
What was the real name, and what was the name you were calling?
Her name is Kirsty, but I was calling her Christy the entire meeting. But I was told it was Kirsty before. But I hadn't spoke with this girl yet. I hadn't met with her. On the Teams call though, I was doing it on my phone 'cause I was on the move in the hotel and stuff, and it said Christy. It said Christy on the Teams, so I went, I'm going with Christy. You know, if it says it on Teams, that's it. Mick's told me it's Kirsty. He's messed up. It's not Kirsty, it's Christy. And the whole hour. And I think Mick during the meeting was writing to me on Slack, but I'm a notification of. He was like, Kirsty. I was like, lovely to meet you, Kirsty. See you soon. I think that was a pretty bad one, but we filled the job in the end anyway, so it was
nice.
It turned out.
Got it over the line.
On you, Christy.
Well, Peter, it's been a great time, brother.
Peter, thanks for coming on the pod. It's been really good. Thanks for sharing your insights and sharing your journey, mate. It's really awesome to hear, you know, the effort that you're putting in and the wins that you're making. It's awesome to share, and hopefully other recruiters listening to this in your space will be able to get a bit of inspiration and be able to keep going if they find themselves in an awkward spot. So, mate, really appreciate you sharing.
Appreciate it, lads. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank you.
legend. Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to another Confessions of a Recruiter podcast with Blake and Declan. We hope you enjoyed and got a lot of value and insights out of this episode. If you do have any questions or you would like to recommend someone to come on the Confessions podcast, we would love any introductions. And remember the rule of the podcast: like, share, and recommend it to a friend. Until next time.